much stimulus passing the House. The Democrats' $1.9 trillion bill passed the House with no Republican votes. It now heads to the Senate, where the $15 minimum wage increase likely will not make it into the final bill. Top Democrats reportedly scrapping their, quote, Plan B to levy a tax penalty on corporations that do not pay workers a certain wage. Joining me right now is Michigan Congresswoman, House Energy and Commerce Committee member Debbie Dingell. Congresswoman, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Hello, Maria. Good to be with you.
How do the Democrats justify this bill, calling it COVID-19 stimulus, when only 9% of it is allocated for COVID-related things?
You know, it depends what your definition of COVID-related is. COVID-related to me is where the money is going in this bill. Some of the money, the 9% you're talking about, is going into vaccines, increasing production, getting them into the arms of people, et cetera. But COVID has impacted so much of our economy in this past year. So making sure that there's money, PPP, for our small businesses and our restaurants is in here. Making sure that there is money so that we can reopen the schools safely, get people, the schools are having to spend more money just to have the schools be safe, for more equipment, more administration, because you can't put the same number of people on a school bus or in a classroom. And how do you manage the children? You have to buy PPE equipment. I can go down the list. People they've lost their jobs. Unemployment's had to go up. This is a COVID bill.
Yeah. Well, let's be clear. You said money for schools. The schools are not open yet, Congresswoman. So there's that. What is this money doing if the teachers are, oh, come on, they need the money to open. And then you said all of these businesses that are affected by COVID. You're saying that the arts and humanities were affected severely by COVID. That's why $300 million is going there. And museums, another $200 million going for museums. And then that rail car in San Francisco that Nancy Pelosi has been funding, putting as much money as she can, every act, every bill. These are things that you're saying are COVID?
The cultural institutions have been hit as hard as any other business. They've not been open.
So have restaurants. I know 100 restaurants. I know 100 restaurants that have gone out of business. Is there any money for restaurants? Where's the money for restaurants?
Yes, there is money for restaurants in there, and I know better than anybody because my restaurants talk to me every single day. Zingerman's, which is, nobody can come to Ann Arbor, Michigan and not think about Zingerman's, and they're about to go under. We have money in this bill that will give restaurants relief. I think I focus on the restaurants and small businesses more than I do on most, and I'm worried about getting these schools reopened.
Look, you've seen Kevin McCarthy's criticism. The leader of the Republican Party says this should be called a Pelosi payoff bill, not a COVID-19 bill, because only 9% of the money is actually earmarked for COVID-related things. The rest are just pet projects of the Democrats, like the humanities and the arts industry, like museums and the rest. We have a list here. It's a real reach to say that giving $300 million to arts and humanities is COVID related. It's also a reach to say $200 million for museums and libraries is because of COVID, and Silicon Valley transit expansion. How is $100 million for the Silicon Valley transit expansion COVID related? I mean, seriously, Maria, we're looking at the list in front of us. We're not stupid, Congresswoman.
I want to talk about museums and nonprofits. Museums have suffered the same problems that businesses have. Do you want to see, there are people of wealth that might be willing to kick in and save some of your big New York art or cultural institutions, but come to Michigan, the Detroit Art Institute, the Henry Ford, Greenfield Village. They have had no income. They contribute to the culture of a community. They're an important part of the economy. They're part of tourist attraction. Do you want to see them go out of business? Those are groups that have been in my office.
I don't want to see anybody go under, but people are going under Congresswoman, I don't want to see anybody go under. People are going under because of the rules and regulations of the Democrat governors who will not allow these small businesses to open. How about putting the money aside, spending the money that's already been allocated, that's in the bank ready to go, and allow these businesses to open so that they can actually get GDP instead of PPP. Let's get the economy back open. That's what's going to get this economy moving, not money for the arts.
Well, first of all, again, those arts
and money for the schools when the teachers won't go back to work. What is stopping teachers from going back to work? Follow the science. Why aren't we following the science? Young kids are not necessarily vulnerable the way older Americans are vulnerable. How come teachers won't go back to work? Meanwhile, they're getting billions more in this package. What is it going to take to get them back to work?
A lot of the teachers are going back as the numbers are going down on COVID. You're starting to see schools open in some places. I have a pregnant niece who's a teacher, and she's been in the classroom. So we can't make blanket statements. Each school district decides itself when the circumstances are okay.
Are you saying more teachers? Are you saying more teachers are at work than not at work? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know what the exact numbers are right now, but I do know schools are starting to reopen. I can tell you for sure.
More teachers are out of work than at work. More teachers are out of school, out of work, because they will not go to work. They want all of this money, but where's the money going? Parents want to know. We've got parents watching right now. They had to cut their own hours short. They had to stop working, change their own schedules to be home for their kids to oversee it. They need their kids back in school.
I don't disagree with you that they were closed when there were dangers. We've lost more than 500,000, 500,000 people have died because of COVID. California was a state that they had to tell people to stay home. Now, as the numbers are going down, we're seeing mutations. You're seeing each school district figure out a plan that works for their community on the science.
Well, let me ask you this. If everybody in the party is so worried about COVID, how come election reform is Nancy Pelosi's H.R. 1? This is the sweeping election reform bill backed by all Democrats last week. It's being blasted by Republicans. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy was with me on Sunday Morning Futures. Here's what he said about it, because as you're talking about all of the horrible situations that have happened as a result of COVID, Nancy Pelosi, the leader of the House, is talking about elections being her number one priority, not COVID. Here's Kevin McCarthy. Watch this.
The Democrats, their very first bill, their most important bill that they're moving, that you talked a little bit about, H.R. 1, is about protecting them, not helping the American public. They want to take taxpayers' money, the hardworking taxpayer, to use it on their own campaigns. They want to change election law so they can change the system so they would be guaranteed that they would always win. They want to have a czar that would take away free speech and what's happening in campaigns. This is the most important thing to them, to just hold on to power.
So what's the explanation?
Maria, let's start with, that's not the first bill that Nancy Pelosi has passed since I have spent literally hours.
HR 1 is what? HR 1 means what? HR 1 means what?
HR 1 is the bill number that it got, but we just talked about the COVID bill we passed on Friday night, Saturday morning. That was the first big piece of legislation that we took up. COVID relief.
But so why does she name the first big bill the president will sign? Why does she want mail-in ballots to stay forever? And why is she using the election as her H.R. 1 then? How come COVID wasn't H.R. 1?
That bill already had a number that was there last session, or the last Congress, and they held that number over.
How about opening the economy being H.R. 1?
How about
opening the economy being H.R. 1? How about getting people back to work being H.R. 1? How about that? How come not?
Because H.R. 1 was already a number assigned to election reform. And by the way, what is wrong with having transparency? What is wrong with a mail-in ballot that lets somebody who it's not easy to get out of their house and go vote? What is wrong with encouraging
we've seen what,
the
Congresswoman,
maximum number of people
I think we all know what's wrong with it. I think we all know what's wrong with it. It litters counties with ballots, and then ballots go to dead people's homes, and ballots go to parking lots, and they come back filled out. I think we all know what the vulnerabilities are around mail-in balloting. And how
we've had
come
states.
you're not stressing having an ID to vote? How about having an ID to vote? What's wrong with that? You have to have an ID to buy a beer. How come you don't have an ID to vote?
There are ways that you confirm the identity of a person without threatening them. And what we know is that
Threatening them by showing ID? That's a threat? Threatening them just because you want ID?
How about some transparency in the electoral process, knowing where money is coming
Bingo.
from?
We need transparency. We need transparency. I totally agree with you. Congresswoman, I love talking with you always. Good to see you this morning. Debbie Dingell, thank you.